The Porsche Carrera S is back. They bumped it in price quite a bit. So what we're going to do in this video is have a look at this design. We have both the coupe and the cab, of course, and I think it looks beautiful. Very simple design. I do like the front end here better than the rest of the 911 models with those shark fin intakes in the front. This looks a lot cleaner than that, but we don't have a manual option anymore, which sounds pretty strange because the Carrera S is definitely one of these cars that I do believe a lot of people want to still have a manual option, but I'm pretty sure they have a good reason for dropping the manual for this. You still have the Carrera T, of course, which only comes as a manual. So before we jump into Photoshop here, let's have a look at what's new for the 2025 Porsche Carrera S. So it now has 473 horsepower, but loses the manual option in this article from Car and Driver. We're going to link it down below. It also has more standard features, which is always great to hear. Maybe not always, maybe sometimes, at some point it gets too many features. I don't know, specifically for Porsche, for a car like this. But you do have more standard features in 2025, but the coupe's base price has risen over $15,000 to now a base price of $148,395. So the engine here is a 473 horsepower twin-turbo 3-liter flat 6 and an 8-speed PDK dual-clutch transmission, the only option you can get for the transmission. More standard leather inside and brakes from the previous 911 GTS model, which is not bad at all. Now, it's starting for the coupe price is about $148,400, and the cab goes up to $161,500. The Carrera S, a model that it fills the gap between the 388 horsepower base Carrera and the higher performance 478 horsepower GTS. Now, Porsche added new turbos and optimized the charge air cooling system, increasing the Boxer engine's output, which is how they tweaked it to get this more power. While it makes the same 390 pound-feet of torque, you now have 30 more horsepower than you had before. Its predecessor's 7-speed manual option has been discontinued, and I would like to know why, because as I said, this is one of these cars that I think like maybe 50% of people would want to have a manual transmission. Maybe it's lower than that. Porsche definitely has a number, so they know what they're doing here. But if you want a manual 911, you can go with the GT3 or the manual-only Carrera T, as we talked about earlier. Now, along with a top speed of 191 miles per hour, Porsche claims the new fixed roof model with the available Sport Chrono package with 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. And that is for a, pretty everyday Carrera S. So not bad at all. That's 2/10 quicker than before. We expect the all-wheel drive the Carrera 4S variant to join the lineup later on at some point. Now, when it comes to the redesign here for the 992.2, I do believe it's called, you do have a new front bumper. You also have a new taillight design. Very, very subtle changes. You don't have that dip in the taillight. Now it's just one single line that houses the rear end, which I think looks pretty good. The front bumper features larger air intakes, and the Matrix LED headlights now package all elements together. The rear end has a more cohesive design, albeit with a similar full-width taillight. And if you're talking about light bars, Porsche is definitely one brand that can definitely, have the right to keep a light bar because they've been having it for such a long time. So there's a standard Sport Tune exhaust. You have 16.1-inch rotors up front and 15 rotors in the back. Those are donated from, as I said, the GTS model. They fit inside standard set of staggered 20-inch wheels and 21s in the rear end. Now, usually, I'm not a fan of these staggered setups. I've said this before when it comes to BMW specifically. And more so on a BMW, you can clearly see that it is different sizes in wheels, and it sort of makes it look almost like a Hot Wheels or something like that. But for the 911, with this sporty shape, I think the staggered setup just suits this shape better than pretty much any BMW when you have the 21s in the rear and 20s in the front. So it looks pretty good here. You have optional rear wheel steering as well if you want to add that to your 911. The coupe comes standard with 2 seats, but a pair of rear jump seats are available at no cost option. The cab is only available with a 4-seat configuration. The roster of standard features includes a cooled wireless charging pad, so you keep your phone cool when you're charging it. Very important. a heated steering wheel, and a knob on the wheel that controls the drive modes. However, you can see that the beautiful old analog tachometer is no more. Now everything is pixelated. I think that is such a shame. I definitely wanted to see, just keep that. They had the perfect layout when they just had the tachometer being this 3D beautiful piece of art in the middle, and now everything is just pixelated, but that's what we get. Previously, the coupe started at $132,950, but as I said, it just jumped by $15,445, and you can expect this to reach dealerships sometime this spring. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's check this out. In this, I do believe this is the Carmine Red that we have right here with the sort of Bordeaux interior. A pretty classy spec, I would say. And if you want to analyze this design in detail, Porsche has one of the best configurators online. You can go and just turn the night on. You can make it into a cityscape, just a studio setting, and just rotate it in HD. It's just a fantastic configurator. I love it. But looking at the design here, we have a new front end, and this is what I love about the Carrera, because it's such a dialed down design. Look at how beautiful this lower section is, with one single lip at the lower section down here as well, just hugging the road. Very simplistic styling. We have all the intakes in the lower section sitting between these two lines here. And that is pretty much it. There's no strange shark fin or shark gill design down here like we have on other 911 models. I think this looks a lot better, but you know, if you want a high performance model, you gotta add some fins here, I guess, to improve the cooling or something like that. It just looks a little strange to me when you have those on. In this case, we have the, I'm not sure if you can actually spec this now with a lighter housing. The insert here is now blacked out. I know that was an option back in the day, but maybe every single 911 comes with that right now. You can see we do have a new type of headlights here. 3 lines for the LEDs in addition to these big 4 light bulbs for the LED headlights, clearly defining this at night. Even though the headlight unit itself is round, you can clearly tell that this is a Porsche at night. I love these subtle lines that we have in the front. It is just a very, very subtle and clean design. This is what I love about Porsche. People say that Porsche don't really update their cars, you know, when it comes to a new 911. You can almost, you almost know exactly what it's going to look like. Just a couple of tweaks to the design over the years, over the decades even. But this is, subtle evolution over revolution. And I appreciate Porsche for doing this. Because usually what we see, specifically in today's day and age, people are going just crazy with their designs, trying to create something that is so shouty. But Porsche has still managed to, dial it down and keep it super classy. I mean, look at this side view. There is no mistaking this side view. Even if you don't like cars or not into cars at all, this side view is, it can't be anything else than a Porsche with these designs here. The greenhouse, very rounded surfaces and corners in the window right there. You have this dip going straight down, boom, right into the rear end with this beautiful light bar design that we have for the taillight design. Subtle integrated diffuser here, like the wheel design. This is one of the specs that I created in the configurator. No sharp lines on the top half of the body, and what this does is creates a very organic looking design for this 911. You can see just how big this rear fender is, and creating a lot of muscle onto the rear end, just planting this on the ground, looking beautiful. We do have one single sharp line, and that is this one right here at the bottom. No black plastic stuff going on at the lower section, because this is a Carrera. We don't need all these aero stuff, just keeping it classy like this. Now looking at the rear end here before we check out the interior, the changes for the facelift is that now we only have 2 lines here, one line at the top and then one line at the bottom. We used to have this piece, I think it dipped in right here, something like this, in the pre-facelift, which also looked very cool, but this just cleans it up even more and make it even, in my opinion, even more Porsche-like to just have two parallel lines, and within those parallel lines you do have all the key graphics in the back, meaning that we do have the light bar back here looking stunning and beautiful. The indicator light, I do think it's integrated right here. And another change that they did in the front end that I forgot to mention is now we have the daytime run lights integrated in the headlight unit itself. So we don't have any more light elements down here. We used to have something down here in the pre-facelift version, and I think again they just cleaned it up more, and I think it looks even more elegant and classy right now. Now the exhaust pipes looking great, oval exhaust pipes, of course symmetrical, and look at this, we don't have a diffuser that sticks up all the way into this area, you know, creating some crazy plastic feature in the rear end. This is stunning. This is very subtle again, and this is again what I like about and appreciate about Porsche design. It's just the subtleness and the classiness of the design and how they refined this design over several decades to what it is right now. The only thing that I'm not so sure about back here is, I mean, this is obviously, I just noticed it right now. Of course, the plate is going to be here, so that's why we have the 911 in white down here. Otherwise, it would be covered up by a plate. I always loved the Carrera S or the Carrera font like that we have right here. I like that it is in black as well and not in chrome or something like that, because we don't have any chrome on this vehicle, looking great. Now, last but not least, this interior. I mean, overall, the interior looks great. I'm glad that Porsche has not gone to, you know, dual screen setup yet. Hopefully, they won't fall for that trend. Being the classy brand that Porsche is, I don't want to see them go into creating something like the BMW's iDrive 9 system. This still has a pretty decent integration of the gauge cluster, even though everything is now digital and pixelated. We used to have the beautiful, it was so good looking to have the analog tachometer in the middle, and we don't have the turn key anymore either. Now we have a start button located. I can't really see it here, and then you have the drive modes for the car right there on the steering wheel. The infotainment screen looks pretty decently integrated as well. I'm not so sure about this corner here though. This feels like a very abrupt corners in the sides of the gauge cluster. I would want to have this be a little bit smoother and smooth this out, something like this, to create a much more harmonic flow for that section of the interior. Thankfully, I do believe we still have an analog timer up top, so that is cool to see that we at least have that being analog, and we also have a couple of analog toggles down here. But I do believe that maybe, actually, it looks like we have toggles or dials for the climate settings down here. This has to be, because it says 22 here, 22 degrees. So I do believe we still have some physical buttons for the climate control settings, and also heated and ventilated seats. You can see that right here. Beautiful, with physical knobs and buttons. And we have the integration, as I said, of the screen here, looking pretty decent because it sits within these two key lines of the interior. So overall, cool to see that the Carrera S is back, even though it's a lot pricier than what it used to be. But you also get more performance. I mean, 0 to 60 for a Carrera S in 3.1 seconds. That is some crazy numbers for a pretty base 911. So beautifully done by Porsche, and I'm looking forward to seeing this beauty out on the roads.